Is it truly possible? I mean, considering all that you've mentioned and the fact that you've said that any little interaction with other arms of government opens them up to corruption, is it truly possible to isolate the judiciary, as it were, and make it independent in the sense that it has its own workings, even in matters that looks like it has to be implemented by the executive?
It is possible. I mean, you have a situation, for instance, where, I mean, you start with the attorney generals of the states and the Attorney General of the Federation. You have, for instance, we have borrowed this system of the presidential system from America. And you have a situation where the Attorney Generals of the respective states are actually elected, not unpicked. It's just, I mean, the people themselves decide that this is the person we want. In such a situation, the man who holds that office, and that's the man between the people who are actually sitting as judicial officers and the government, he is supposed to be very, very independent. But in Nigeria, the Attorney General is handpicked. The person who is governor of a state determines who should be Attorney General. The person who is president of the country determines who is the Attorney General and Minister for Justice of the Federation. He picks the person. The president can pick his brother. And of course, the party in power, when they get to the Senate or Assembly level, they will ratify whatever has been done. Now, when you leave that, then you get to a situation where the judges themselves, there was a situation, I like talking practically. I mean, there was a situation where in judges, when they first of all started this idea that, okay, even the NBA must have a say in the appointment of judges, which is as well, that's the way it should be. Because those of us in the profession, we know the good, the bad, and the ugly amongst us. We know those people who are totally incorruptible. That is lawyers. And usually, I mean, you cannot be a judge without being a lawyer first and foremost. Now, you have a situation where they now say, okay, NBA, give us a name. And the person who was the then chairman of the NBA forwarded his name. And he was appointed.
You mean his own name?
Yeah. There were protestations. It happened in this country. Some people protested. Some people never listened. Are you with me? So, you see, this whole idea of whether, you can separate the wheat from the wheat from the chaff is possible, but it's just not practical or practicalized in Nigeria. Because even when they now said, okay, you MBA, tell us who we can pick. I mean, the person picked himself.
But was it always like this? Sorry, Sulaiman. Yeah. Was it always like this? I mean, when we started talking about degeneration, it would seem that at some point it was almost ideal, and at some point it began to actually degenerate. Yeah. And maybe the systems haven't changed much, but what was responsible for that degeneration?
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, within the years that I have practiced, I mean, I met so many people there. There are still so many people ahead of, those of my own generation. We read in the books, we heard from senior colleagues that, it wasn't always like this. I mean, to be a judge in those days, to be a magistrate, I mean, I was drawn to the profession because in those days, to even be a lawyer, I grew up in an area where there was a magistrate who eventually became a chief judge of this state. And in those days, every morning I would stand in front of my house to see her entering her car. Magistrate. I mean, to see a magistrate is like you are seeing an angel in those days. So I was drawn to the profession. My ambition was to become a magistrate. I didn't even know there was something called judge. Then, and by the time I became a lawyer, this person that was my role model was already a judge in Lagos State. She eventually became a chief judge, and the decay had set in. And I had an opportunity to even practice before her. And I actually saw and felt the decay, even before her.
Must have been heartbroken.
Very, very. Today I am heartbroken. I tell people, what else can one do? Unfortunately, when you are in this profession, you can't easily get out of it, except you don't love it. But when you love the profession, You can't do any other thing if you are really serious about it.
Because it's really, Mr. Oloyede, it's really crazy, and it can be painful. We've been trying to see, everyone has been talking about it, talking about the judiciary, and well, sometimes you see some particular case, you wonder how people rush to say, don't worry, we'll file this case before a court, and every big name or every big acronym you can think of in the legal profession, they'll back that person, back that individual in the full glare of, say, what can you guys do? So people are a little bit worried. What place is law, or is what kind of role are lawyers playing in building a better society, if that is part of what they should be doing?
Well, I guess the build-up to your question says, tells the true story on ground. The question does not tell the story, but your build-up, you have a situation where you have a hopeless case. And like somebody that I learned from, who is my role model now, says, a lawyer knows a bad case from his chambers. The moment you are briefed, you know that this is a bad case. You will lose.
Really?
Yes. Every good lawyer knows that. You know that. Let me use that expression. When you are briefed, you know that, oh, this is a case that is 90-10% against your client. When it's 50-50, you can easily tell your client, this is 50-50. When it is, but in Nigeria, some lawyers actually file cases to buy time, thereby congesting the courts. Now, when we talk about the corruption in the judicial system, you cannot remove anybody, both lawyers, judicial staff, judicial officers, judges, magistrates. We're all in it. But the bulk of the problem, I had interacted with a judge who said, well, it's not in my office to go chasing for bribes, to go asking people to come and settle me so that I can be influenced in my decision. But that Nigerians, they chase you with it. That they will come. If they know they cannot approach you directly, they will send your wife. They will send your son. Send your brother. They will send your benefactor, the person that sent you to school. The man you cannot say no to. And then when such people come, where do you start reporting? Do you go to EFCC to say, look, my uncle tried to bribe me, the person that sent you to school? Because you don't even know who sent him. It just comes that, well, there's a matter before you. The judge was telling me that. And the reason why we had this, it was after one of my appearances here that this judge called me. We had a discussion on the Ibori case. When we were talking about how a judge said no, there is no case against this man. Maybe 170 something.
Count
charge.
Yeah.
And you see, this judge says, look, it's so easy. I am a lawyer. I have an opportunity to talk, to criticize everybody. I'm sitting down here. People are listening to me. Most judges can't talk. They can't defend themselves. But if judges had an opportunity to talk, Nigerians would be shocked at the caliber of people who corrupt them. That is the sad part of the story. So it is not just that a judge gets into office and he or she decides that all I want is to make money.
But there are some judges who maybe that is all they want to do.
In every situation, there's always an exception to the general rule. Some people, they lobby for the office because they see it as a means, or as an end in itself. Now, once I get there, I'm rich. In those days, even when I started practice, judges were like priests. Priests now, the real priests. Because even in...
That was when you started practice.
Well, when I started. You are not supposed to be rich. You are just supposed to live okay, live well, send your children to the good schools. There was dignity.